Hey everyone, tonight we're diving deep into a world where cogs and water didn't just tell time, they performed miracles. Imagine, if you will, your smart home. Lights that dim on command, music that plays with a word, a little robot vacuum bumbling its way around your living room, occasionally getting stuck under the sofa. A minor inconvenience in our automated lives. We're so accustomed to automation, to complex machines making our lives easier, or at least more entertaining. Now, picture trying to achieve that level of sophisticated automation, not with silicon chips and electricity, but with gears, water, weights, and an almost magical understanding of mechanics, all nearly 1,000 years ago. Honestly, if you were suddenly dropped into the 12th century, you probably wouldn't survive the sheer lack of Wi-Fi and decent coffee, let alone the intricacies of medieval plumbing or the very real possibility of encountering a grumpy courtier who hasn't had his coffee. It was a different world, yet one brimming with an ingenuity that could rival, and in some ways, even surpass our own in its sheer audacity. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I love to see where you're all tuning in from, and what time it is in your corner of the world, so feel free to share that in the comments below. It makes our little historical journey feel a bit more connected, like we're all gathered around a digital campfire. Now, let's dim the lights, turn on a fan for some gentle white noise, and begin tonight's journey together. You find yourself not in the sterile gleam of a modern workshop, but in the bustling, sun-drenched city of Diyarbakir, or Amid, as it was often known then, in what is now modern-day Turkey. It's the late 12th, perhaps early 13th century. The air is thick, a complex tapestry of scents, roasting lamb and exotic spices from the myriad market stalls, the sweet perfume of jasmine wafting from a hidden courtyard, the dusty smell of sun-baked earth, the metallic tang from the coppersmith's quarter, and the ever-present, slightly acrid aroma of wood smoke from countless hearths. Your ears are filled with a symphony of urban life, the distant, mournful call to prayer from a minaret, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer against anvil, the chatter of merchants haggling in Arabic, Turkish, and Kurdish, the laughter of children playing in the narrow, winding alleyways, and the soft clopping of donkeys laden with goods navigating the crowded thoroughfares. You pass through the formidable, imposing black basalt walls of the city, fortifications that speak of a place accustomed to defending itself, a jewel in a landscape often contested by various powers. Within these walls, you make your way towards the Artukid Palace. It's not the sprawling, gilded fantasy you might imagine from a fairy tale, but a robust, functional seat of power, yet with pockets of exquisite beauty and craftsmanship. Intricate tilework might adorn an archway, a cool fountain might splash musically in a shaded courtyard, and rich carpets from Persia might soften the stone floors of the reception halls. It is here, within this nexus of authority and artistry, that a truly remarkable mind is at work. His name is Badi al-Zaman Abu al-Izz ibn Ismail ibn al-Razzaz Al-Jazari, a grand name for a grand intellect. We'll simply call him Al-Jazari, our guide into this world of mechanical marvels. He's not some ethereal scholar lost in abstract theories, though he was undoubtedly learned, familiar with the works of Greek mechanicians like Hero of Alexandria and Philo of Byzantium, as well as earlier Islamic inventors. No, you picture him as a man of action, his mind a whirlwind of gears and levers, his hands calloused from years of direct involvement in building his creations. His beard might be flecked with sawdust, his robes perhaps smudged with oil. He served the Artukid kings, specifically its thought, Nasir al-Din Mahmud, who reigned in Diyarbakir from 1200 to 1222, for decades, inheriting his position from his father. He held the prestigious title of Ras al-Amal, Chief of Works, or Chief Engineer. This wasn't just a ceremonial post. It meant he was the practical problem solver, the master craftsman, the one the Sultan turned to when he desired something ingenious. From designing more secure city gates, to developing powerful water-raising machines for irrigation, and, as we'll soon discover, crafting devices of pure, delightful wonder. Imagine Al-Jazari, perhaps in his later years, being commissioned by Sultan Nasir al-Din Mahmud himself to document his incredible inventions. The Sultan, recognizing the ephemeral nature of even the most brilliant career, wanted a record, a legacy. And so, Al-Jazari painstakingly compiled his life's work into the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, or Kitab fi Marifat al-Hiyal al-Handasiya. Completed around 1206, this wasn't just a personal notebook. It was a royal commission, intended as a testament to the ingenuity fostered under Artukid rule and as a practical guide for others. Think of it, a large, handsome volume, the pages made of quality paper, filled with elegant Arabic script, and crucially, scores of detailed colored illustrations. These weren't just sketches, they were working diagrams, showing cutaway views, mechanisms, and the interplay of components. Al-Jazari categorized his inventions into 6 main types: clocks, fountains, and musical automata, devices for raising water, and various other marvels like trick vessels and even a combination lock. His language is clear, direct, almost like a modern technical manual, explaining not just what the machine does, but how to build it, down to the materials and measurements. "I have only described what I have designed and made, and what has worked," he asserts, emphasizing his practical, hands-on approach. There's a quiet pride in his words, but also a genuine desire to share his knowledge. Let's start with something that might seem a playful curiosity, but reveals his profound understanding of mechanics and fluid dynamics, his trick vessels. Imagine being at a royal banquet. Al-Jazari presents a beautifully crafted ewer. He pours wine for one guest. Then from the same spout, without any apparent adjustment, he pours water for another, and for a third, perhaps a mixture of wine and water. How? Through cleverly concealed internal chambers, siphons, and air pressure mechanisms. It's a delightful piece of dinner party magic, but also a demonstration of sophisticated scientific principles. These kinds of devices, seemingly simple, were a testament to his mastery over the unseen forces of physics. You can almost picture the baffled amusement on the faces of the courtiers, wondering if actual Jinni were involved. "No Jinni," Al-Jazari might have chuckled. "Just good engineering, and perhaps a little bit of showmanship." Now, let's consider the soundtrack to this inventive age. Al-Jazari didn't just make things that moved, he made things that made music. He designed elaborate fountains where water, flowing through various pipes and chambers, would trigger automata of musicians to play. Imagine a courtyard fountain where, at intervals, mechanical figures would strike cymbals, blow flutes, or beat drums, all powered by the clever channeling of water. One famous example described a musical boat with 4 automated musicians designed to entertain guests at royal drinking parties. The boat would float on a pool, and at intervals, the figures, a harpist, a flutist, and 2 drummers, would play. The mechanism for this was ingenious, involving a slowly emptying reservoir of water that would trip levers connected to the automata, all driven by a water wheel hidden within the boat itself. This shows his early and sophisticated use of the camshaft, a component that would become crucial in later automated machinery, to program sequences of movement and sound. One of the fascinating things about Al-Jazari is this insistence on providing detailed construction plans. He wanted his work to be understood, replicated, and perhaps even improved upon. He often wrote about testing and perfecting his designs, a true engineer's mindset, lamenting those who didn't follow instructions precisely or who claimed the work of others as their own. Historians still debate the full extent of earlier influences on Al-Jazari, whether his knowledge stemmed more from careful study and improvement upon the Hellenistic traditions of Alexandria, particularly figures like Hero and Philo, or drew from ancient Persian and Indian hydraulic and mechanical traditions that had flowed into the Islamic world. There's also the question of how much was uniquely his own brilliant synthesis and advancement. What's clear is that he took existing principles, like the use of siphons, cams, and escapements, and elevated them to an entirely new level of complexity, reliability, and artistry. He wasn't just making machines, he was crafting interactive, multimedia experiences. It's like he was the Leonardo da Vinci of his time, but with more actual finished products. The atmosphere in places like Diyarbakir, and indeed across much of the Islamic world at this time, often referred to as the Islamic Golden Age, was surprisingly conducive to such innovation, despite the political and military turmoil that often swirled around its edges, including the Crusades. While parts of Europe were still navigating what some historians have termed a period of slower scientific development, centers of learning, translation, and culture flourished from Cordoba in Spain to Baghdad and beyond. Rulers like the Artukids, even if their domains were relatively small and often precarious, saw immense value in patronizing scholars, artists, poets, and engineers like Al-Jazari. These magnificent devices served multiple purposes. They were, undoubtedly, a potent display of the ruler's power, wealth, and sophistication. A form of technological peacocking, if you will, designed to awe local subjects and visiting dignitaries alike. Imagine the diplomatic impact of gifting a rival potentate one of Al-Jazari's smaller automata. They also provided unparalleled entertainment and wonder for the court. But beyond the spectacle, some of his inventions had very practical applications. His 5 water-raising machines, for instance, were crucial for irrigation, supplying water to farms, homes, and hospitals in cities that often relied on complex hydraulic systems. You can almost hear a medieval project manager saying, "Okay, Al, the dancing peacock fountain is great for morale, but we really need that improved Sakia water wheel for the North Fields before the dry season hits." But let's be honest, while a new irrigation system is vital, a giant mechanical elephant that tells time with moving figures is mostly about being incredibly, astonishingly cool. It's the medieval equivalent of a concept car or a flagship smartphone launch, showcasing the absolute pinnacle of available technology and unbridled imagination. Now, as the evening deepens around you in 13th century Diyarbakir, let's slowly drift towards the heart of Al-Jazari's most celebrated achievements, his clocks. In a world without the precise chiming of a grandfather clock in the hall or the insistent buzz of a smartphone alarm, knowing the time was still incredibly important, perhaps even more so in some ways. For the 5 daily Islamic prayers, for organizing civic life and markets, for astrological calculations which were taken very seriously, and simply for the smooth running of a royal household, accurate timekeeping was a serious business. Water clocks, or clepsydras, had been around for millennia, their origins tracing back to ancient Egypt and Babylon, perhaps even earlier. The basic principle is beautifully simple: water dripping from one vessel to another at a steady rate to measure the passage of time. You've probably seen simple versions, maybe even made one, in a science class. But in Al-Jazari's hands, this ancient, humble principle became the foundation for theatrical, monumental, and astonishingly accurate timepieces. He didn't just want to tell you the hour, he wanted to put on a full-blown spectacle. He understood that a machine could be both an instrument of precision and a work of art, something that could delight the senses and elevate the spirit while serving a practical purpose. Before we delve into his most famous and globally recognized creations like the elephant clock, let's consider one of his slightly less colossal, but equally ingenious designs that he details with such care, his castle clock. Imagine this, not a discrete mantelpiece clock, but a structure standing over 11 feet high, designed to be a public or palatial centerpiece. Its facade was like a miniature theater stage. It featured a display of the zodiac signs, a semicircular track representing the solar and lunar orbits, with golden discs representing the sun and moon that moved across it, indicating their positions in the sky. Along the top, a row of 12 doors. Every hour on the hour, 2 mechanical falcons would lean forward from niches, appearing to drop balls from their beaks into ornate vases below, creating a distinct clang that would echo through the hall. Simultaneously, one of the 12 upper doors would open, revealing a figure, and a pointer would move across a calibrated scale to mark the hour. This was multimedia performance art, 13th century style, a daily and hourly show. The sheer complexity is mind-boggling, coordinating all these diverse movements, the slow creep of the sun and moon disks, the sudden action of the falcons and the doors, ensuring a degree of accuracy over long periods, all powered by the steady, reliable flow of water through precisely calibrated orifices and the clever use of falling weights, hidden floats, pulleys, and exquisitely engineered gears. You can almost feel the cool, damp air in the grand hall where such a clock might have stood, the gentle, constant gurgle of water, its rhythmic heartbeat, a mesmerizing centerpiece that spoke of order, precision, and the patron's mastery over time itself. And as you watch these mechanical figures come to life, again and again, you realize you're not just seeing a machine, you're witnessing the breathtaking ambition, the playful spirit, and the profound intellect of a true visionary. This wasn't just telling time, it was celebrating it. You're still in that grand hall, the echoes of the castle clock's hourly clang and the gentle murmur of its internal mechanisms fading slightly as your attention is drawn towards another, perhaps even more captivating centerpiece. It's a device that seems to pull together the threads of distant lands and ancient myths into one harmonious, ticking, whirring, and trumpeting whole. This, my friends, is the legendary elephant clock. Imagine standing before it. The first thing that strikes you is the majestic, life-sized representation of an Asian elephant, crafted from wood and adorned with rich textiles, or perhaps skillfully painted to mimic the creature's leathery hide. It's not just a static statue, it carries an entire world on its back. Atop the elephant sits a canopied structure, a kind of howdah, but far more intricate than any ordinary riding seat. This structure is a miniature palace in itself, with balconies, pillars, and domed roofs, hinting at architectural styles that blend influences from across the Islamic world. Your eyes are drawn upwards. Perched at the very top of this elaborate structure is a mythical bird, often identified as a simurgh or phoenix, a symbol of rebirth and royalty. Its wings perhaps poised as if ready to take flight. Below it, within the howdah, you see figures. There's a seated scribe, pen in hand, poised over a dial. Flanking the main structure, two large, ornate serpents, or dragons, their sinuous bodies crafted from gleaming metal, curve downwards, their heads positioned over vases on either side of the elephant. And look closely at the elephant itself. A turbaned figure, the mahout or elephant driver, sits on its head, one hand raised, holding a pickaxe or hammer. Hidden within the elephant's body and the tower above is the true marvel, the complex machinery that brings this entire tableau to life every half hour. Let it be known, constructing such a marvel was no small feat. Al-Jazari himself described the elephant clock in meticulous detail in his Book of Knowledge. It's a testament not just to his mechanical skill, but also to his vision of a connected world. The elephant itself points to India, the dragons to Chinese artistic traditions, the phoenix to ancient Egypt and Persia, the water mechanics perhaps to Greek Hellenistic knowledge, and the human automata figures in Arab-style attire. It's a United Nations of ancient technology and symbolism, all ticking away in a palace in Diyarbakir. Historians still debate whether these multicultural elements were purely Al-Jazari's aesthetic choices, a reflection of the cosmopolitan nature of the trade routes that passed through the region, or if they carried deeper political or philosophical messages intended by his Artukid patrons, perhaps a statement about their own sophisticated worldview and their place at a crossroads of civilizations. So, how did this magnificent beast actually tell time? You lean in closer, trying to pierce the veil of its artistry with your modern understanding. Deep within the elephant's belly, hidden from view, is a large bowl of water. Floating in this bowl is another, smaller, precisely calibrated deep bowl with a small hole in its base. As water slowly, steadily seeps into this inner floating bowl, it gradually becomes heavier. Every half hour, it becomes heavy enough to sink. This sinking action is the trigger, the prime mover for the entire spectacle. As the inner bowl tips and sinks, it pulls on a string. This string is connected to a series of pulleys and levers, a cascade of precisely timed reactions. The string first causes a small ball, hidden in the canopy atop the elephant, to be released. This ball drops, and as it falls, it might strike a cymbal or a gong, producing the first sound to mark the passage of the half hour. The ball then falls into the mouth of one of the serpents. The serpent's head, weighted by the ball, slowly pivots downwards, as if it's an ancient mechanical water fountain. This movement is cleverly designed to trip another mechanism that pulls the now empty inner bowl back up to the surface of the water in the elephant's belly, ready to start the cycle anew. Simultaneously, other actions are set in motion by that initial pull. The scribe automaton, seated in the howdah, would turn, and his pen would move across a dial marked with the hours, pointing to the correct time. The figure of the mahout on the elephant's head would strike the elephant's head with his pickaxe. Perhaps the most delightful part for a sleepy observer like yourself, high up in the canopy, small bird automata would peep and chirp, or one might rotate, indicating the passage of the half hour with a visual flourish. The phoenix at the very top might also rotate. It's a flurry of activity, a precisely choreographed mechanical ballet, all initiated by that one sinking bowl. And then silence, save for the almost imperceptible gurgle of water until the next half hour brings the spectacle to life once more. The ingenuity lies not just in the individual mechanisms, but in their perfect synchronization. One can only imagine the painstaking process of calibration, the endless tiny adjustments to the size of the hole in the sinking bowl, the weight of the balls, the tension of the strings, to ensure it kept reasonably accurate time. It makes you wonder what debugging this contraption was like. Salim, the dragon's not tipping again. Did you feed it too many metal balls for lunch? The elephant clock is, quite rightly, one of Al-Jazari's most famous inventions, celebrated for its sheer mechanical complexity and its beautiful fusion of diverse cultural motifs. Its grandeur and ingenuity have so captured the imagination that full-scale working replicas have been built in modern times, such as the one in the Ibn Battuta Mall in Dubai, and another at the KSC misinterpretation or focus on a modern detail the user wouldn't want, allowing us to witness its magnificence firsthand, a tangible link to this golden age of invention. One rather curious detail often overlooked is the sheer number of distinct automated actions, up to 7 or 8, that would occur in quick succession every half hour. It wasn't just one movement, it was a cascade, a narrative told by machinery. While the elephant clock often steals the limelight, Al-Jazari's genius wasn't confined to water-powered behemoths. He also mastered another ancient form of timekeeping, the candle clock. Now, a simple candle clock is just that, a candle marked with lines, where time is measured by how much wax has burned away. Useful, but not exactly spectacular. Al-Jazari, of course, took it to a whole new level. Picture a large, ornate candle, meticulously crafted to ensure it burned at a very precise and consistent rate. This wasn't just any beeswax candle. Its composition and wick would have been the subject of much experimentation. Al-Jazari describes one particularly sophisticated candle clock that featured a main dial to show the hours and a series of automata. At the top of the clock, perhaps, was a figure of a scribe, similar to the one in the elephant clock. As the candle burned down, its holder, which was connected to a system of pulleys and counterweights, would slowly descend. This descent would trigger various mechanisms. For instance, every hour, a small ball might be released to strike a gong, or a door might open to reveal another figure. One of his most impressive candle clocks, often called the scribe candle clock, featured a mechanism where the figure of the scribe would appear to write the number of hours past. The pen of the scribe was connected via a series of levers to the follower that rested on the diminishing candle. He even incorporated a clever bayonet fitting for the candle, allowing it to be replaced easily without disturbing the mechanism, and ensuring it was always held in the correct position. The real challenge here, and a somewhat quirky detail, was the absolute necessity for the candle to burn uniformly. Any variation in the wax density, the thickness of the wick, or even a slight draft could throw the entire clock off. You can imagine Al-Jazari and his team meticulously testing batches of candles, perhaps with a long-suffering apprentice whose sole job was to watch candles burn and shout, "It's gone out again, master." It's a mainstream historical fact that his candle clocks were remarkably advanced for their era, incorporating features like dials, automata, and sophisticated feedback mechanisms that far surpassed simpler contemporary designs. However, historians still engage in some scholarly debate regarding the exact methods Al-Jazari used to ensure such a consistent burning rate for his calibrated candles. Was it a secret wax formula, a particularly innovative wick design, or perhaps carefully controlled environmental conditions within the clock's housing that he didn't fully detail in his manuscript? We can only speculate on these finer points of medieval pyrotechnic precision. Let's step, for a moment, into what Al-Jazari's workshop might have been like. It wouldn't be the gleaming, well-lit laboratory you might picture for a modern inventor. Instead, imagine a spacious, perhaps somewhat cluttered room within the palace complex. The air would be filled with the scent of sawdust, hot metal, and oil. Light would filter in through arched windows, illuminating benches laden with tools, hand-powered drills and lathes, saws of various sizes, files, calipers, hammers, and crucibles for melting metal. Rolls of parchment with intricate drawings would be spread out on a large table. You'd see craftsmen at work under Al-Jazari's exacting direction. He was the master designer, the chief engineer, but it's unlikely he crafted every single gear and lever with his own hands. He would have had a team of skilled artisans, woodworkers shaping the bodies of his automata, metalworkers casting brass and copper components, meticulously filing them to achieve the perfect fit, for in a world without standardized parts, every piece had to be custom-made and hand-finished. There's a certain romanticism to the idea of the lone genius, but large-scale projects like the elephant clock or the castle clock would have required a collaborative effort, a workshop buzzing with focused activity, all orchestrated by Al-Jazari's vision. You can imagine him moving between stations, inspecting a newly cast gear, discussing a tricky linkage with a craftsman, his mind constantly calculating, adjusting, and problem-solving. Maybe there's a quiet chuckle as a newly assembled automaton makes an unexpected, jerky movement. "Not quite, my friend," Al-Jazari might say with a wry smile. "Back to the drawing board for that elbow joint." The materials themselves were precious. Hardwoods, brass, copper, silver, even gold for decorative elements. Each piece was shaped with incredible precision. Think of the gears, not mass-produced, but individually cut and filed, their teeth meshing perfectly to transmit motion smoothly and reliably. Consider the delicate siphons and valves controlling the flow of water, or the finely balanced floats and counterweights. It was an art form as much as a science, requiring immense patience and a profound understanding of materials and their properties. These weren't just toys for rich sultans, though they certainly served that purpose. They were demonstrations of mastery, of understanding the hidden laws of the universe. In a time when much was attributed to divine will or magic, Al-Jazari was showing that complex, seemingly magical effects could be achieved through human ingenuity and a deep understanding of natural principles. His work subtly shifted the boundaries of what was considered possible. And as you stand there in the heart of his imagined workshop, surrounded by the hum of creation, you feel a profound respect for this medieval master, a man who not only dreamed of incredible machines, but also possessed the skill, the knowledge, and the tenacity to bring them into tangible, ticking, and utterly astonishing reality. The legacy of these devices, how they were perceived beyond the palace walls, and whether their intricate secrets traveled further afield, is something we can ponder as we move into the final stages of our journey with him. You can imagine the scene, Sultan Nasir al-Din Mahmud, or perhaps a visiting dignitary from a distant land, standing before one of Al-Jazari's masterpieces, let's say the castle clock, with its hourly parade of opening doors and clanging falcons. What would they have thought? Surely there was awe, a sense of profound wonder at the almost magical animation of inanimate objects. For the ruler, it was a potent symbol of his sophisticated court, his patronage of brilliance, a technological marvel that spoke of power and divine favor through the understanding and harnessing of natural laws. For courtiers and visitors, it was unparalleled entertainment, a conversation piece, a source of pride. But perhaps, for some, there might have been a whisper of suspicion, a hint of unease. In a world where the lines between science, magic, and religion were often blurred, such lifelike automata could have seemed almost uncanny. Al-Jazari, with his clear, methodical explanations, was firmly in the camp of science and engineering, but not everyone would have possessed his understanding. Fortunately, Al-Jazari's most enduring legacy wasn't just the fleeting wonder of his physical creations, many of which, being complex and made of materials prone to decay or repurposing, likely didn't survive intact for centuries. His true lasting gift was the book of knowledge of ingenious mechanical devices, and it seems his wish for his knowledge to be preserved and disseminated was, to a significant extent, fulfilled. Several copies of his lavishly illustrated manuscript survived the ravages of time, painstakingly hand-copied by later scribes who recognized its immense value. Today, these precious manuscripts are housed in renowned libraries and museums around the world, from the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul to the Bodleian Library in Oxford and the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin. It's because of these surviving copies that we know so much about him and his work. Without them, he might have become just a footnote, a half-forgotten name. The very existence of multiple copies, made over subsequent decades, underscores the impact his work had on the Islamic scholarly and engineering traditions. However, the golden age that nurtured Al-Jazari was not eternal. The Islamic world, in the centuries that followed, faced immense challenges, including the devastating Mongol invasions that swept across much of Asia and the Middle East later in the 13th century, disrupting many centers of learning and patronage. While innovation certainly didn't cease overnight, the specific tradition of creating such extraordinarily complex and whimsical automata seems to have waned in some regions or transformed. One can imagine a weirdly poignant scenario, one of Al-Jazari's grand clocks, perhaps years after his passing, falling into disrepair. Without the master's touch or equally skilled successors intimately familiar with its intricate workings, fixing it would have been a monumental task. Perhaps some were eventually dismantled for their valuable metal parts, their complex mechanisms becoming a mystery, their former glory fading into legend. It's a bit like finding an advanced piece of alien technology today. We might marvel at it, but figuring out how to repair it without the manual could be a nightmare. This leads us to one of the most intriguing scholarly debates surrounding Al-Jazari, the extent of his influence on later European clockmaking and engineering during the Renaissance. As Europe began its own scientific and technological resurgence, remarkably similar mechanisms to those detailed by Al-Jazari started to appear in Western designs, things like segmental gears, sophisticated camshaft arrangements, and escapement-like mechanisms. The question is, how did this knowledge travel? Was it through Moorish Spain, a known conduit for Islamic science into Europe? Was it through contact during the Crusades? Or perhaps via translated texts that made their way along trade routes, particularly through Venice and other Italian city-states? While direct, irrefutable lines of transmission are often hard to prove conclusively, the parallels are striking enough for many historians to believe that Al-Jazari's ingenuity, codified in his book, played a role, perhaps indirectly, in the later European technological boom. He wasn't working in a vacuum, and neither were the European innovators who came after. It's a fascinating puzzle of technological diffusion across cultures. Regardless of the exact pathways of influence, Al-Jazari's contributions to the fundamental principles of engineering are undeniable. He was a master of converting rotary motion to linear motion, using crankshafts and camshafts in ways that were revolutionary for his time. He understood feedback mechanisms, calibration, and the importance of detailed plans and practical experimentation. While calling him the father of robotics, or the father of modern engineering, might be a simplification that overlooks a long lineage of inventors before and after him across various cultures, he was undoubtedly a towering figure, a colossus of medieval engineering, whose work demonstrated a level of sophistication that wouldn't be widely seen again for centuries in many parts of the world. His emphasis on practical application, on building things that worked and worked reliably, sets him apart. So, as we reflect on Al-Jazari the man, what picture emerges? Not just a dry academic, but a vibrant personality, a meticulous craftsman, an innovative designer, a dedicated teacher eager to pass on his knowledge, and yes, a bit of a showman who understood the power of wonder. He took the theoretical knowledge inherited from past civilizations and infused it with his own brilliant creativity and practical skill, turning abstract principles into tangible, moving, and often delightful realities. He saw the world as a system of interconnected parts, a place where human ingenuity could create marvels that mirrored the precision and beauty of the cosmos itself. You can almost imagine him, a twinkle in his eye, watching as a new automaton whirs to life for the first time. A quiet satisfaction in seeing his intricate calculations and painstaking labor bear fruit. Perhaps a small, contented sigh before his mind inevitably races ahead to the next challenge, the next marvel waiting to be coaxed from wood, metal, and water. Now, let the image of his workshop begin to soften. The clang of the hammer fades, the whir of the lathe slows. Perhaps one of his gentler creations is nearby, not one of the grand public clocks, but something smaller, more personal. Maybe a less ostentatious water clock, its movements slow and predictable, the only sound a soft, rhythmic dripping, a gentle gurgle as water flows from one chamber to another. The light from a single oil lamp casts long, dancing shadows, and the intricate patterns of an astrolabe on his desk gleam faintly. The day's work is done. The city of Diyarbakir outside the palace walls is quieting down, the vibrant chaos of the marketplace giving way to the stillness of the night. The automata, if any are still running, move with a soothing predictability. A small bird figure might slowly nod. A miniature door might softly click open and shut, not with a startling clang, but with a gentle precision. These aren't devices meant to shock or awe in the dead of night, but perhaps to provide a steady, rhythmic focus, a mechanical lullaby. The cool night air drifts in through an open window, carrying the distant, faint scent of jasmine or night-blooming flowers from a palace garden. Al-Jazari himself, his mind finally at rest from the day's complex calculations and constructions, might be listening to these gentle sounds, the soft pulse of his creations, a comforting presence in the quiet of his chambers. Let the steady, predictable rhythm of these ancient machines guide your own breath. Inhale slowly, and as you exhale, feel the day's thoughts and tensions begin to recede, just as the water level in one of Al-Jazari's meticulously crafted vessels would slowly, steadily fall, marking the peaceful passage of time towards slumber. Now, let your mind drift from the intricate gears and marvelous automata. Let the sounds of Al-Jazari's workshop fade into a gentle hum, like distant wind chimes. Picture the soft, flickering light of that single oil lamp growing dimmer, its flame smaller and steadier, casting a warm, amber glow that soothes your eyes. The coolness of the stone floor beneath your imagined feet is grounding, connecting you to the quiet earth. Feel the tension leaving your shoulders, as if a heavy cloak you didn't realize you were wearing has been gently lifted away. Your breathing is slow, and even now, a natural rhythm like the gentle lapping of water in one of Al-Jazari's most peaceful fountains. There are no complex calculations to perform, no intricate mechanisms to understand, just the simple sensation of release and calm. The images of elephants and dragons, of scribes and falcons, become softer, their edges blurring as if viewed through a gentle mist. They are no longer distinct objects of fascination, but rather distant, pleasant memories, part of a story that has lulled you towards rest. The rhythmic dripping of water is now the softest whisper, almost imperceptible, a tiny, regular beat in the vast silence of the night. Allow yourself to float in this quiet space, a space of comfort and tranquility. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be, except here, in this moment of peaceful surrender to sleep. The last vestiges of the day's thoughts dissolve like sugar in warm water, leaving only a serene emptiness, a readiness for deep and restorative rest. The journey is complete. The workshop is still. All is calm. All is well. Good night.